Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Happy Saturday, or perhaps it's Sunday, depending upon where you are on the globe. Welcome to the season finale of Adult Conversations with Cynda, Family and Friends. And today's broadcast, we will have guest Dr. Alicia Watkins, who will be discussing relationships and finance. So, without further delay, let us welcome our beautiful host, Cynda Williams, and family and friends.
Hi, thank you, Doise.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Doise, I've seen you on other things, but this is the first time you've made a visual hello to this group. So thank you so much for letting us see your beautiful face.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's dive right in. We're going to first start by introducing everyone one at a time, and I'll call out your names so you can tell the audience who you are, because some people will be returning, but others are going to be brand new, and so we want everybody to know who everyone is. So I'll start with you, Dr. Alicia. Please tell us about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Alicia. I am a social worker. Yay! Social worker first. I am a college professor, so I'm a full-time college professor at a university. I have been promoted for 10 years and for full-time professor, where I train adults on how to become therapists. So I'm also have my own private practice, and I am a therapist. I work with couples and individuals. Hello, everyone.
Wow.
Thank you. That is so cool. And I'm really excited because I just found out that Dr. Alicia is a neighbor,
Yes.
and I can't wait to go hang out with her in person.
Wow.
And I have to get to DC so I can hang out with Ms. Doeyes. But I'm so excited that you're close by, as well as today here with us to lend us some of your expertise and your knowledge that we all need. I'm sure, and plus get your views and your opinions on this other topic that I'll dive into in a second after everyone has introduced themselves. James Wesley Williams, would you please tell our audience who you are?
Okay, thank you. Glad to be here with you. Good to see your beautiful faces. Even the guy. What's your name? I'm sorry.
Dr. Newsom.
Dr. Newsom.
Okay. First, I thought I was the only guy available, but now I see that I am not, and so good to meet you as well. So happy to be with you. I've been down and out a little bit relative to the weather. As you all know, well, I'm in Valparaiso, Indiana, and so I am nearby. So the weather that you are experiencing, I too am experiencing the same clogged up nose and sinuses, et cetera, and so forth. However, I am so happy to be with you. What I do, well, spans many, 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 many years of work. And strangely enough, I am still working. I've been involved in theater and music, et cetera, and so forth. All those kind of creative things that I've done. Presently, I am a therapist, and I work in South Bend as a therapist. And my lady and I, Alicia, she also works there as well. And I work relative to, I have maybe 10 clients that I work relative to the Zoom. I also work in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I work in here in Valparaiso. So I move around a little bit, and I do a lot of things in music, and I do a lot of things in theater, and I do some things in therapy. Strangely enough, the therapy part is, as you would know, Alicia, is difficult in this season. It has been quite a battle as it relates to the needs of people. And so this is what I do, and this is what I enjoy doing. And I want to believe that I have a special entrance into what to do, how to handle the situation relative to couples therapy, et cetera, and so forth, trauma, and that many people are going through. So all those kind of things. But I am happy that I am well enough that I could speak to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James.
Mhm.
And some of you know, and some of you don't. I call him King every once in a while because he was a King James in his band when I was a little girl, and so he was always king to me. So if I call him King, that's who I'm referring to.
Okay.
All right. So now, the Most High's baby girl, aka Sadi Rose, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hey.
Sadi Rose, and I'm an attorney. I'm an advocate. I also work in social services, and I consider myself a practitioner and a policy thought leader. So I merge the two in my practice that I do every day, and I'm also becoming an influencer as it relates to spirituality, and hope to hopefully start writing my books here soon.
Ooh.
That'll focus on those things. My goal is to really
Yeah.
make the case that spirituality is a determinant of our health, and to make it, to normalize it as part of our everyday living. And so, happy to be here and joining the conversation.
Thank you,
Mother of
Sadi.
as well. I'm not going to leave. That's very important. Mother of four.
Yes. And a very good mother of four, because
Yeah.
I'm an auntie of those four too. So I'm a testifier. Thank you, Sadi. Dr. Frederick Ware Newsom, please remind our audience and introduce yourself to those that don't know you.
All right, I'm glad to be here once again. I thank Queen Doe Eyes for the opportunity. Glad that all of you are on here. It's really amazing. Really awesome to see my brother on here as well. Actually, what I do is I'm in the music business as well. I've been a part of the Stellars, the Grammys, but now I do my own show, Newsom World Awards. We just did doing over 20 years now and 42 shows. And I'm into the political arena. Just ran for the presidential election this year. I'm into doing my own court cases. I love representing myself in the courtroom. Got a case with the United States Supreme Court, many other courts. So I do some everything. Religious community, very deep in the religious community. So I do quite a bit.
All right. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
I'm sure also some of you know me, but most of you don't. So I'll just quickly say what most people know me for is as acting and singing also. I've been in the movie business for the last 30 something years. And I'm also a writer, a published writer. You can find my book on Amazon, Pink Penny Confessions, and it has nothing to do with underwear. And it's my self-help memoir. And I'm also an influencer, and hopefully just helping people to wake up to who they already are. That's kind of my purpose. And
Yeah.
and so I think everybody on here is in that same purpose. So it's really great to connect with like-minded others. So, okay, let's dive into our conversation. Our first conversation, actually, Sadi brought to my attention. She was doing some reading through her work, and so we wanted to talk a little bit about. There are people in the United States who are happy about how the past elections happened, and some are not, and some are in fear about it. So I'm not. I just want to get that out there at all. I have no fear about what's going on because I believe that God's source is in charge of everything, and no matter how it looks. But there are some things about that we have to be conscious of, that are policy changes that are happening in the country that could affect us directly. And also just some positive information about new resources that are coming about that are very exciting. And so we want to talk for about 45 minutes about that before we dive into the more fun conversation of finances and romance together. That's definitely something. So I think we should start with Sadi. Rose, you can start us out with some of the information that you thought was important to share.
Yeah, I think the reason why I brought it up to my sister was that, you know, a real life situation was is happening in my life. And I'm like, I wonder how many people know what's actually happening at the local level of state and like different counties, like especially brown and black communities, you know, especially when we hear about a woman walking down the street getting set on fire, you know, my mind starts to wonder about, you know, what are the implications of what is to come as, you know, racism definitely, you know, I don't want to say it's at an all-time high because it's been high, but like it's, you know, people who have previously hidden it, it's like they have permission now to display it in very violent ways. And I don't think that it's just about individuals or hate groups that are coming together, but I do think that there is a real need to understand different cities and different laws. Like, for example, Indiana. Indiana, they lowered the age to buy firearms to 18. And like, what do they think is going to happen if you allow a whole bunch of 18-year-olds to buy firearms? They don't need a permit. They don't need to have any kind of training. And so pretty much what's happened in the state of Indiana is it's like a war zone. You have all these young men, of course, disproportionately black men who are, and young ladies who are able to buy guns from other 18-year-olds. And then on top of that, Indiana is a state where murder is murder. So it doesn't even matter if like you know, like if it's something that happened in the heat of a moment, like in other states where there's degrees of murder, you get a minimum of 45 years. It doesn't matter what. And of course they have felony murder too. So if you happen to be a brown and black, you know, individual living in Indiana, something happens, you're looking at, even if regardless of the circumstances, you're looking at a minimum of 45 years to start for your sentencing that you're going to have to be. And then it goes up from there. So I just, you know, that had my mind going like, I'm going to tell everybody I know, not to say that, you know, of course we all try to avoid being in those situations, or so, especially as serious as a, you know, a murder, right? We try to avoid those situations, but we have to be aware of where we have our families. Why would you want to live in a state that is doing that? It's dangerous for everyone on the ground. Like Indiana has a lot of pros, a lot of positives, especially because I've been eyeing moves around Munster and other areas because it's very nice over there and I like it. But when I know that they're allowing 18-year-olds to buy guns and everyone, you know, and to have access to that, it becomes very dangerous. So that's what initiated my whole thought, because I'm like, we really need to know what's happening on the ground. And it's not just about policies like that. We need to know about, you know, what's happening as it relates to women's reproductive rights. You know, we've been hearing about what's going on in Georgia. Like Atlanta is the mecca for like us, you know, for especially for black people to move to in terms of diversity and opportunity. But then you have these crazy laws when it comes to women's reproductive rights. And then when we start talking about voting rights, right, it gets really crazy. So that's my opening thoughts, just to open up. I'm like, I think before we it's like here now. And I can tell y'all, I'm a lobbyist as well. I didn't mention that, but I'm very, very active in the policy world. And so I'm hearing everything that's going down. All of the federal agencies are bracing for the change in administration. They are seriously bracing for the brunt of it. So I think we just need to be educated and aware of what's coming, not out of fear, but so that we can have discernment in how we move with our families.
Right. Because the thing about it is, it's like, know where you're living, know the laws of where you live. That's the basic thing. There are good and bad parts in everywhere in the world. There are parts that you have to be more conscious of. But now that there's a shift in our leadership, there's also a shift in our policies. So instead of just hoping for the best, know where you are, have your children know where they are and what could happen if, just know the laws. Because literally, I live a half an hour away from Sadaka, who is in Illinois. I'm in Indiana, and the laws are completely different. So what applies to her sons growing up in Illinois, they have to know what's happening in Illinois as well as what's happening in Indiana and any other state that they're going to easily transfer and go to for any number of reasons, just to go to an amusement park in Ohio, or it's wise to know basic things about everywhere you are, the positive things about those places and the negative places, so you're ready. And like, for instance, the other day I was driving, it was completely dark where I was, no street lights at all, and I was in a turn lane and didn't realize that. I thought it was 2 lanes, and I got pulled over, and I didn't even know what I did, right? And the gentleman that I dealt with, thankfully, was very kind, and I'm an adult and know how to handle myself when it comes to police officers, right? I paid attention and I've learned the rules, and I know how to handle myself no matter what kind of person he might have been. But some young 18-year-old, you know what I'm saying, that drives over to Indiana to visit his girlfriend, that doesn't know the laws there and make those kind of mistakes, it could have a different outcome. So it's just good for people, and I'm very proactive myself, getting very proactive myself in different groups. Like, for instance, I've joined a group called the Black Revolutionary Collective. And that's happening all over the country, but the main headquarters is Chicago. And so I'm involved with this. It started literally the day after the election. All these groups started forming, and this is one of them. And it's all about teaching our kids, preparing our kids, making sure our kids have food, healthy food, so we're doing gardens, we're doing, access to healthy options. There's a whole 10-point plan in what these groups are doing all over, not just the country, but the world. It has expanded beyond our borders into others, because we have to be more proactive. We used to be a village, we used to be a village, and now we're so spread out, not just from our family, but from our friends, our communities, that we don't communicate. So it used to be easy to whisper in somebody's ear, you need to watch out for this, or pay attention to that, or be there in the life. Now people are so far away that they don't communicate at all. They don't even communicate with next door neighbors. So stuff could happen that you're not prepared for. And so these collectives are about getting people protected. And again, like Sadaka said, not from a point of view of fear, but a point of view of being proactive. It's kind of like a wake-up call. Wake up, take care of yourselves, come together, learn how to communicate and help each other for the best of all of us, not just Black people, but all people. Let's come together. And so for that, I am very thankful for the new administration, because it lit a fire under a lot of people. And I appreciate that. Right.
And I wanted to jump in really quickly.
Sure.
To piggyback off of you, Ms. Cynda. DMV is the same way. What's true for DC is not for the district, and definitely not for the Commonwealth of Virginia. I don't really like driving in Virginia too much, but you're absolutely right. And as far as knowing your surroundings, there are a lot of apps out there now, so you can pretty much check sometimes to see who might be living next to you and your children. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. And thank you. And I think it's important to have these conversations, like Sadaka's children are 3. They're kind of young, but they're brilliant. They're coming in fully baked, they're jumping ahead of me 20, 30 years. Okay. So communicating with our kids about all this stuff, making it understood, and that you need to know where you're going. You need to know what the pros and cons are so you can be prepared and deal with any eventuality. I travel all the time, so I try to know where I'm going and what, some laws are basic, some rules are basic, but then there are specific rules and laws. And it's important, if it's something new, to know about it if you're traveling. Dr. Frederick Ware Newsom, can you give us a thought about it? What we're talking about?
Well, I mean, everything sounds good, and I'm clearly on board. I think that I think it would be an issue equipping everybody with guns, but I think people would have to properly know how to use guns and be taught how to use them, and then they have to defend themselves. They have to be taught that. But I am 10,000% on their constitutional right to bear arms. I just think people should know how to do it properly, because realistically, and I'm not making this a black or white issue, but a lot of these young white boys walk down the streets in numbers of 100 plus with guns in their hands, and the police won't even touch them. But if you get 100 black kids to walk down the street with guns in their hand, the police will be all over them. So obviously, we see there's not a clear playing field here. But the point is that teaching them how to properly use weapons, how to properly carry guns, how to properly walk in their constitutional rights. I think this is what we have to teach them. Not that they can't carry arms; they have a right to bear arms, but they have to do it in a more diplomatic way, if I say. But I'm for the Constitution of the United States, and I love representing the Constitution of the United States. I love following the Constitution of the United States. And I think that's where we're going to make our biggest strides and our biggest steps, because we know the court system, the laws are not equally distributed. Even though they're on the books for everybody, they're not equally distributed. So that being the case, we have to teach our children with wisdom, with knowledge, with understanding. And that way bring them up to par where the rest of the country is, but do it in a more diplomatic way, that we don't have them harm themselves and they don't harm others, but they do have a right to defend themselves. So that's pretty much what I'm saying on that.
And on that note, I would like to ask Dr. Alicia and then James about my issue. So much is, everybody has the right, but should everybody have the right? If there's a lot of mental illness happening very, very in your face right now, with a wide range of us, not just young people, but everybody. I just know too many people that have tried to unalive themselves a lot, and unalive other people along with them. That's happening in a rampant way right now. So while I think everybody has a right to bear arms, I don't know that certain people that have been diagnosed certain ways or whatever should. And the problem is, so many people are undiagnosed. So they may appear to be fine. But everybody knows at 18 for young men, that's a very volatile time. It's hormonal. They're finding out the boundaries, they're understanding. I mean, they say that the brain is not fully developed until you're 27 or so. And so now not only are they driving a car, which they're rethinking because it's so dangerous, but now they have guns and they don't have to have permits for their guns or be tested in certain places. So I believe everybody has the right to own a gun, but I also believe that we have a right to live safely. So we got to find a balance. I don't know how that happens, but Dr. Alicia, from your point of view, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I'm like spot on with everybody. There's a lot of young men who are in a lot of pain. And how do you deal with that? We live in a culture that doesn't support the expression of feelings, the expression of emotions in a healthy way to get in tune with that. And if you weren't able to go to college and you're not able to make enough money where you feel like you can do things that you really feel like you want to do, you can become very frustrated and very upset by that. And some people internalize a lot of that and they think, what's wrong with me? And so that's why people would unalive themselves. And when you give somebody access to deadly weapons like that, you make it easier for them to complete that these thoughts that can be oftentimes intrusive. So yeah, I mean, we just live in a culture where we don't support and we don't encourage men in particular to talk about how they feel and what's going on with them. So that's the one thing that I would say about that. I do have some other thoughts about criminal justice system if you want me to share.
Please share. And then
yeah, I mean,
James will.
Criminal justice system is racist. You know, surveillance. We know this. It's racist. We are more likely to be surveillanced, sought out. We're not more likely to commit crimes, African Americans, but more likely to be monitored. And then you have arrest. Once you get into contact with the police, thanks for sharing, Cynda. That was a wonderful experience, that contact that you had with officers, but that's not the case for many African Americans. Who's more likely? There's a street level bureaucracy. Who's more likely to be arrested? We know African Americans are more likely to be arrested and accosted. And then you have sentencing. You go in front of the judge, and then you have like all of these. And then once you get out of prison, what can you do? A lot of times you're limited on what you can do. So the criminal justice system is a system that's racist. I love what you were saying, Sciatica. Is that your name?
Sadi.
Yes, sorry. I love what you had to say, because you're right. This election, it is giving white people permission. It's like, you know that song, "Thank you for letting me be myself. Thank you for letting me be myself." I feel like that's what we're getting. It's just, I just have noticed it because I live in a very white suburb. I just noticed a shift in how people relate to me and how they relate to Black people in general. I just see it, and I noticed this. So, and then buying guns, you know, I live in Illinois. So there are people who could just go right over to Indiana, buy a gun, and come to Chicago and easily distribute these guns. So being a neighboring state, it is of concern. And then the last thing I would say is the misinformation. It is so frustrating. As someone, I consider myself a scholar. I don't think I'm better than anybody else, but it's like common sense has been lost on a lot of people. People have been taking just, I don't know, rhetoric and just running with it, when it's just like there's contradictions to what you're saying, you know? So it's been quite frustrating watching this election cycle and seeing all this misinformation being flown about and not checked, not clarified, and people just, there's such a divide, especially on social media. It's like people are not listening to each other. They're just running off with their own ideas. It's very frustrating. So thank you for letting me talk.
No, it is. I agree, you know, and people don't understand how they create these algorithms. They don't understand that they get the information they get because of what they share, what they like, what they comment on. So if it's something fearful and you comment or engage in it at all, that is the kind of content you're going to constantly get, because algorithm gives you what you ask for. And so you won't get that kind of, I don't get any of that stuff. The only way I find out about things is someone else tells me, because instead I'm getting content about how to be better, how to grow, how to love myself, how to love others. That's the kind of algorithm I have. I don't get any of that stuff. I find out from other people. So we control all of that. And so if we're settled into our fear, you're going to get content that makes you even more fearful, because that's how the algorithm works. And unfortunately, we weren't taught these things. I don't know how I figured it out. It's got to be, it was fed to me by spirit, because I don't know how I just knew that, but I did know that, So the algorithms that people have created is just making them feel that much more different from everyone else, and causing more division, all of that stuff,
You have a conversation with someone and you're just like, wait, where have you been? You've been on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. I'm in it really is a whole nother planet.
Yeah.
And you're just like so confused. Like, where did you get this information? Who told you this? This is not the same information that I'm getting.
Yeah, it's I mean, in spiritual terms, it's separate timelines, different people are living different lives. because whatever you call out to or command to come your way will come. And some people command something to make them mad, something to make them hate, someone to make them racially against others or religiously against others or whatever. But James, I want to hear your thoughts because I know you have a perspective. Please share. I'm sorry, Sadaka wants to share one thing.
I just wanted to respond to the conversation that you were having for Uncle King. It was just that I think people are struggling because the main sources of information nowadays seem to be biased and giving incorrect information to people. And so that is why people have started to rely on what they see on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, is because what we thought we could trust, a lot of people are thinking now we can't, because there's been evidence to show that we can't. Sorry.
No, agreed. You know, I'm sorry, James. So what do you think?
Yeah, I do agree with everything that you all have brought to the surface as relates to the condition of our world, of our planet, of our community relative to the ability to live normally and what we call normal. One of the things that I am faced with as it relates to social services and as it relates to mental health, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a time in our lives that mental health has elevated to the point of not being a clear thing that we could address and do anything about. Our therapists are old, as I am. Our people who are involved in social services are lax in what they do for people. This whole thing relative to color is really prevalent because of a situation of mental health and mental illness and trauma. The wars, the past wars, are now coming upon those who have been in service and have done things relative to being involved in a war, are surfacing now, to the extent that from a mental health perspective, they don't know what to do, how to handle it. Those of us who are relatively normal, yes, we are trying to beat the odds. But I think to some degree, the odds are beating us. That's because the people who are dedicated and in service for us relative to mental health, I'm talking about mental health and spirituality, it's not working. I know about social services. It is not working. And I'm not saying this as just being a blanket statement. I'm saying the structure of what we are adhering to that is supposed to get us balanced again or rebalanced or get us settled is not working. And it's not just in America, but it's all over the world. My partner and I work in Ukraine. We work in Russia. We work in various other places of the world. And people are going through the same thing. The imbalance in mental health. What to do about just a simple thing like trauma. What do you do with a simple thing like trauma? And the question, and it gets to this place where the therapists, in a lot of cases, are going through what? Trauma themselves. We are adding service to therapists in the Ukraine who are watching bombs drop on their head. Now, who's going to provide them service in order to be able to get through? that tragic outcome? Well, it's difficult, and it's not just in the Ukraine, it's worldwide. And this is what our therapists and counselors have to deal with in our hospitals. Well, in Indiana, most of the facilities, as those of you know, are closed down. So there is no place for our clients to go after they've been diagnosed as having borderline personality disorder. And where do you go after that? Well, if you don't have the money and the means, then you go where? You go back on the street. And I'm saying that we ought to at least think about what is happening to us from a psychological perspective. And also, lastly, from a Christian perspective, the church is still shouting and shimmying. They're still jumping out the window, which is okay. You know, I'm not against that. I've been in the church all my life and all that kind of stuff. But the church has failed in that they are not providing the essence of Christianity or whatever faith you believe in to balance us out. And what was good back in the 60s and 70s and 80s when I was around is not working any longer. People need to have a confidence. People need to have a faith. People need to understand what it means to be a father, what it means to be a mother, what it means to be on the level of working in a community. They need to know that they can make it. Who's going to provide that? The world has changed, and we have to make the change in order to help the world.
Thank you. So on that note, I mean, I think we have an opportunity now. I think that my opinion, maybe it's naive, is that things get darkest before the brightness of light. And I think that's where we are. I think we're at the end of a chapter. And so right before you start a new book, you know, with new beginnings, you got to close out the old. So sometimes that looks really, really horrible. It looks really, really bad. In order for you to then say, okay, we can see now there's no way to ignore things the way they are. There's just no way to ignore that things are very, very difficult on a worldwide level. Things are very difficult. So now we can see that, then now we can start.
Did she freeze?
She's frozen.
Well, until she unfreezes, I'm right just to follow what she was saying. I think that what has happened over time is that we as beings, you know, regardless of your faith, you know, if you don't, you know, believe in God or not, but if we are creations, we have relied on external things outside of ourselves to fix us, to help us, to, you know, keep things in order. And that is not working because it is against it's against the universal laws, but it's also just not in alignment with what our true selves inside are telling us, which is that everything needs to start first in us. And then the external needs to reflect that. And that has been the imbalance. And that's why I think these systems have to fall. So when you talk about therapists, you know, they're overwhelmed and that these systems, the social service providers are not being effective. It's because the individuals who are having the issues are not doing the internal work within themselves. And they don't have a support network of people close to them that are helping them to process whatever they're going through, including diagnose, you know, illnesses that they might have. You need a support system. You need people who can help you work through those things. And so if you're just like, it's kind of the same thing like you going to church every Sunday, but you're not doing anything else the rest of the week. it has to be a daily practice. It has to be a daily reflection. It has to be a daily commitment to really change yourself. And until we as a people, humanity, decide to flip it, where we hold ourselves accountable and that we ask ourselves hard questions and that we every day work to create what we want the world and the people around us to be, it will always be messed up. We have to flip this paradigm about that everyone else, like there was a question and they went around, I saw where people kept getting asked before the election, they were like, well, what are all the things that you want to side of you? And they had a lot to say. But when they asked them, well, what can you do to change the world? Nothing. No one had anything to say about what they could do to change anything. Had no kind of inward reflection, no kind of intentionality. They have, that's why people are so distraught and fed up. And that's because they feel like they have no power. They feel like they're, that they're being controlled. They don't like the story of the world that we're in right now, the timeline, storyline, whatever you want to call it. They feel completely hopeless because they feel like they don't have no power. But that's a lie. We have all the power, and all this darkness has just been playing upon that illusion that we have no power. So I believe that the moment and I'm just going to pass it back to Cindy to build on the momentum of what she's saying, is that shift has started to happen, and that's why everything is falling. And I'm going to throw it back to Cindy because I just wanted to follow up on that.
Oh, thank you. I lost power, so I wasn't even with you guys. So thank you for. I don't even know what you heard me say.
I just continued what you were saying about.
Okay, thank you. So as thinking about what Sadika's saying about starting with self and then going, I think, it's starting with self, then starting with family, then starting with community, then starting with state, on and on. So I think, at least for me, being proactive about being a part of that shift is important. It's one thing what I'm doing here, with Doe Eyes, where we're talking serious conversations and hopefully giving some people some power back and helping them to understand that it is a lie, that they're powerless. There is nothing to be afraid of except for being afraid, and helping them to understand that's part of my specific role. But it's also important for me to be proactive with my hands, to get in the gritty and start working on some things instead of just talking about it. Because I'm older, I have no responsibilities except for myself, so I get to choose my schedule, unlike, say, Sadika and maybe Dr. Alicia too, because you got work to do in your own homes, and so it's hard to get beyond unless you include the family in that. But being involved, I always say this, we are a solution-based show here. We are not just whining and crying and venting, because that's important to do, but it's also important to come up with ideas where we can actually start being proactive. And in this group that I mentioned, the Black Revolutionary Collective, is a way that I'm going to start giving back. I don't know what they're going to have me doing. Our first meeting is in January, our first in-person meeting. So I'll find out at that point. And then if I like what I feel, then I'm going to reach out to all my family and friends that are in the area to say, hey, come join us, because the plan is a beautiful one and it is taking the power back. It's all about working on us. And I'm, Sadika and our mom was almost full Irish, but in this country, we are Black, and that is who we are, and that's what we claim. At least I should just speak for myself. That's what I claim. And so, since I can't be everything to everybody, I choose to deal with the Black group of people that right now, because you can't do it all. And hopefully the growth that we have amongst each other will then spread out to all kinds of folks. You know what I'm saying? If everybody comes together in whatever way you want to be proactive and change things for yourself, then that's a way to to start changing everything, so that's one of the things I'm saying to people, it's talk about it, but don't dwell in the talk. Get onto the works. Do something like good doctor is doing, or Sonica's doing, or James, or any one of you who are doing so much for people. You really are, and I'm so glad to be a part of you. Doe Eyes, you provide this wonderful content to help people that might come upon us, and hopefully our numbers grow, because these things need to be talked about. So for some reason I cannot see self-care. I wanted to read his comment, or her comment. I'm sorry. People need to fear God. We need to read our Bible and pray, so to gain vision, that's the way to go forward. Okay, thank you very much.
Could you all briefly respond to self-care, and thank you, self-care, for that, if you don't mind.
I think it would be awesome, Dr. Newsom, if you answer that.
Yeah, you know what? And I agree 100%. I don't do anything without God leading, without God's guidance. I'm not really the one to talk about a problem. I'm not interested in talking about a problem. I'm interested in how we solve the problem. So that being the case, God being directed, like the saying, God being directed, I started my own political party, the Newsom Party. Now, why did I start this party? Because I heard a lot of people talking, but nobody doing actually nothing. And I've always been like that my entire life. If I see a problem, I'm going to find a way to solve it quickly. Like everybody else, I used to work for social services for nearly 12 years. I heard a lot of workers talk about the problems. I want to solve every one of them. I said, if you come into social services, you have a problem, I can't solve it, nobody can solve it then. I made myself learn how to do everything, that every customer got treated fairly, honestly, and with respect. Even in this realm, now what you don't know is that I'm still contesting the Trump win, because when he applied for the presidency, he didn't qualify. He was considered an insurrectionist. So an insurrectionist can't run for the office of the president of the United States. So I'm still contesting that win, because me being a presidential candidate, I have the right and authority to do that. On January 20th, according to the Constitution of the United States, they can't confirm him as president of the United States because he did not qualify to run. Even though the United States Supreme Court tried to downplay it this year, he would have had to re-register for the office of the presidency, which he did not do that. So he doesn't even qualify. See, that's my point. I solve problems. I'm not interested. Me in the conversations, I'm just not interested in them. I want to know, how can I get in and solve this thing and get it done and over with. And right now, and I know y'all don't know this, he doesn't even qualify to run for the office of the presidency. So that being the case, you can't confirm him on January 20th, 2025. That's the solving of the problem. Now, me have my own political party. I have the right and authority to do that. A Democrat can't do that. A Republican can't do that. An independent can't do that. I have the right and the authority to do that because I ran under my own political party. So when we're talking about putting God first, we have to put God first. There is no other way to go. Everybody trying this without God, it will never work without God. You have to have God first. I have to keep God first in my life. You have to keep God first in your life, or you will get nowhere. We'll be keep doing the same thing, just talking about stuff. I've been in the hundreds and hundreds of interviews and talk shows, and everybody pretty much do the same thing. Just talk about the problem, and I just refuse to take part in them. But this one, I think, is an excellent one, because now I have an opportunity to hear truth. Have the opportunity to hear righteousness. This is the only thing that's going to stand, truth and righteousness. All this other pretense and show, that doesn't mean a doggone thing. And that's so I agree with the person. You got to put God first. You don't put God first, you actually don't have nothing. We'll just be talking for the next 100 years, and ain't nobody going to do nothing. So that's what I stand on, and I do agree with the person. Put God first.
Thank you. And so do I. I think everybody on here does, I think, I'm just guessing, but that's the vibe I'm getting, that everybody does. So Dr. Alicia, what do you think? What is something that individuals can do to be proactive in their own evolution right now?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love what everybody is saying. Put God first. The whole spirituality piece is so important. I think that this election left a lot of people feeling helpless. And I think that we have to like get a grip on what we can control and what we cannot control, and not worry about the things that we can't control. You know, really focus on, I love what Sciatica, I'm going to get your name right. I love what you had to say earlier while Cynda was paused there for a second. But it really is, when I work with clients, we deconstruct. We deconstruct how much of this problem is you, how much of the problem that's presented is systemic. And maybe there are some things you can do that's systemic, that you can vote, you can participate in elections, you can join a group like Black Revolutionary, what is it, Collective. You could do any of those things, but you can also look at what part of that is your mindset, what part of that is you believing the hype, you listening to all of these things outside of yourself that's trying to define you, and you know who you are. So really going inward and taking back control of what you do, what you think is so important, and knowing that, you know, what is your part in the problems that you are thinking that it's just too much for you, and what are these thoughts? How do these thoughts influence your mood? How does it influence your behavior? I love what Uncle James over here had to say. He's my Uncle James now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, just the trauma.
Yeah.
What is it that you're so triggered about that puts you back into that childhood reactive state? And, you know, what is it that's going on there? What is this situation? How is it reminiscent of other things that happened in your life where you're reacting so strongly? I mean, it's so important, you know, always to take a look at these things. And all of the clients that I meet with on an individual basis, these are the conversations that I'm having. Yeah, we can't blame your mom. We can't blame your spouse. I'm talking to you right now. You know, they're not here. You know, what is it that you can do to really put you into your own God's purpose? I think God is within us. And we forget that. So I have to remind people of the basic principles of life and how you can connect to that and control how your life is. That's the one thing. Feeling hopeless and helpless, that's where you know people have won. You've given up and saying it doesn't even make sense to even participate in a group. It doesn't make sense to do this because what difference does it make? That is when the system has you beat, you know? And so taking back control of your life and things that happen to you, as within, so without. You know, everything that you see in your life is a reflection of the type of energy that you're putting out there, and you can take control of it. I've seen it happen. I do it in my own life. I just got off of every 2 or 3 times a year, I go to California and I meditate in the mountains, and we drink our little tea, and we're flying around. You know, I have very spiritual experience because I'm working in a high stress area of therapy, and I work at a university, and there's all these competing different things that I have to deal with. So I need to have a place to go where I can unload a lot of that, and I feel so much lighter and better. So that is my self-care, you know, that I do for myself. And you know, if I'm upset, it's because I decide to be upset. If I'm happy, it's because I didn't make that choice to be happy and content with my life. I don't make sure that all of these external things are not telling me what to do, how to spend my money, how to spend my time. I take control, and I'm in tune with myself. I know what my purpose is. And, you know, those are the things that I want to get on YouTube and talk about. I'm on YouTube, I feel like, all the time, social media, but that's where this journey has led me to this. And I don't take that for granted. So yeah, I encourage everybody to be in control. Don't be manipulated.
That was so helpful, and thank you. I'm going to say this before anything else happens. I'm having Wi-Fi issues. I'm not sure why, but if you lose me, Sadika, just lead on, okay? Just take it out. I'll come back, or I won't. It doesn't matter about me being here. It matters that this stuff gets talked about. So if you lose me for any amount of time, please just carry on. Thank you everyone for this part one of our conversation. I know it was helpful to me, and I hope it was just the start of a conversation with everyone that's listening. Are we going to take a break, Doise, or do you want to? Oh, we're just going to give our contact information right now. So everybody share your contact information. So by the end of the show, we don't have to rush that part of it. So Dr. Alicia, how can people contact you if they want to?
Right here. There's
right
my website, coachingwithdralicia.com. You can also get me on Instagram at Coaching with Dr. Alicia. Follow me on Instagram, everybody. And then that's my website. So you can click on my website and it'll give you information how to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to follow you today. Dr. Frederick Ware Newsom, how can they support you?
Yeah, on Facebook, you can go to Frederick Ware Newsom, just how you see it, or you can go to my website, www.newsomawards.com. You'll see that I do a whole lot between music, acting, theater, award shows, everything.
Okay, wonderful. Is there any way we could support your political?
Well, on my website, you'll see a link on there for the Newsom Party, and you can actually look at, and I'll tell you, look at the background, look at the outline, and we're only interested in people that's functioning under righteousness. If they're not under righteousness, that is something we're not interested in.
Okay.
Have to function under righteousness.
Thank you. Thank you so much. James, if people want to support you, how could they do that?
You can go to my website, numa.org. NUMA, and my partner and I, we work relative to mental health issues. And so if you want to get in contact with me, you can come to my Facebook page, James Williams, or you can go to numa.org.
Thank you so much. Sadi?
I'm on, you can follow me on TikTok, assuming that it carries on, or YouTube at the Most High's Baby Girl, all one word. So it's just, without the apostrophe, the Most High's Baby Girl. And I'm on Instagram, and it's La Leona Bonita, which is LeonaBonita.
I think we need to fix that, Sadi. Make it one thing so that everybody can find you on the same thing across the board. But keep the La Leona Bonita in there.
Since I don't know, I said I've had my Insta for so long. It's like I don't want else to have La Leona Bonita. But anyway.
Yeah, one of them. The other one should be your in parens version. So both are on there, but one for people to find you would be cool. I'm at Cynda Williams on here, and there's a couple of pages. I don't know. How do you know? I don't know which one to tell you, but it's Cynda Williams and at Cynda Will. That's where you can find me across almost all social media. I do some, just like Sadika does. Sadika does what she calls the word, where she gets on there and she shares stories from her own life and ideas about how to live. And I share little quips about having to do with whatever I'm dealing with in life, meditations with sin, and then also showbiz sin, because people know me as an actor, so I give advice based on work-related things, for across the board for anybody. So you can find me at Cynda Will for most of that, and if you put in Cynda Williams, you should be able to find any of them. And also, I have a live Instagram show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Central. So moving, did I get everybody? Yeah, I got everybody. Doise, do you want to share information? So, obviously people know where you are here on YouTube, but if they want to find you elsewhere, should they? Could they? Would they?
Of course, they can just put in Doise, but most of the time that I'm here. So,
Doise?
I'm here. You hear me?
Okay, yeah, you were having the same issues I was
hear
having.
you.
Okay.
Now I can hear you. So how can people look you up beyond
Did she
your
freeze up
YouTube?
again?
Here, you can just type in the Y's and I'll
Okay.
pop up.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's a good idea. Whoever has the ability and wants to
Thank you.
put your
I
information in the
froze too, so
chat.
I missed what happened. Is Cindy, did she freeze again?
She's frozen. She's frozen, but I can hear her. But she's
Okay.
I
frozen.
don't think somebody wants our message to get out.
I know. That's
Well,
what
maybe we should take our
I
break
didn't want to
real
say
quick.
it.
I'll text her, take like a 5-minute break until she can get her connection together.
Okay.
To the next section, right? We'll go to the next
All
section.
right.
Okay.
Well, we're going to be talking about, this is going to be really good, I think, finances and relationships with Dr. Alicia.
Ooh.
Dr. Alicia, you were getting into the groove earlier, so I'm going to get into my little groove. Ain't
Right.
nothing going on but the rent. That's true? Not true.
Okay. Okay.
I do have a little bit of a personality. You
Sure
don't see
you
it much, but I do.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, so I have it as returning at 2:12 Central.
2:12. Got you. Break time.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. Can you see me?
Let me get you back on.
You're frozen.
So my visual is still frozen?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to remove you, and can you come back in? Is that going to be
Yes.
okay? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to wait for Miss Cynda to return, and we're going to get into finances and relationships. Dr. Newsom and I, we have a show on Sundays, and I shared with him some hilarious stories, and I don't know if I'll do one here, but we'll see how it goes. I'm just waiting for Miss Cynda to return. And if you all can, and those who may leave comments, be candid if you like. There's no judgment here whatsoever. We live and we learn. Well, some do.
Okay.
We're just waiting. It might be weather too, because I've had that issue earlier this week of freezing up or having to actually leave out and come back in. So we will give it a few more moments. But while we wait, if Dr. Alicia is still here, would you like to give us a little bit of information as to what a normal intake as it relates to relationships would be for you?
An intake?
Or is that correct? Is that proper?
Yeah, you can say the word intake. I
Okay.
mean, let me know if it's what you're looking for. How I do my business is people go to my website, they fill this information out. I have an assistant who will get back to them, and then we'll have a consultation, and then I'll just sit and listen to what's going on. And then with that, I will schedule like a full-on session. That first session, of course, is the intake and assessment, because ethically, James knows this. Ethically, you have to do an assessment. And so I do an assessments, get them all set up. And then if I work with individuals, I do an individual assessment. We work on goals, whatever the presenting problem is, and then we explore them. Typically, a lot of the clients that I have, I meet with them for about 2 months or so. And then for weekly, and then depending on what they're presenting with, then we'll kind of meet every other week and then once a month, and then when they need me. So I'm not the type of therapist that I feel like you have to meet with me all the time, every week for the rest of your life. You know, it has to be good enough for you to function. I do work with couples and families. With couples, I do a big assessment. So I assess their relationship with each other. And then I also do an assessment individually. What was going on between you up until the time that you met your loved one? And then I do a couple assessment. And then we work on goals and get everything situated where we can kind of deconstructing the dynamic in the relationship, how things have functioned or not functioned as well as it needed to be. So that's sort of how I work. And I think that's pretty typical with a lot of couples therapists and individual therapists.
Thank you. And Miss Cynda is back.
Miss Cynda, yay. Okay.
Sorry, I had to get on a different device. Yeah, and my whole computer shut down. So
wow.
When things like that happen, that means I need to shut up for a minute and let other people carry stuff, because that's who's supposed to be talking, not me. But my phone is fine, so thankfully for that. I didn't hear everything you said, Dr. Alicia. So you're just
I was just talking about Miss Doe over there. She asked me questions about assessments and how people get a hold of me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the financial thing.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna dive into, right?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll start off by saying that was the biggest bane of my relationship issues. And I think it's a lot of people's, because I never had any learning about anything about finance growing up. Nothing. And I mean, I think it's because our parents had never been taught anything about anything like that. They came from, backgrounds that wasn't the focus. My dad's side was focus was on religion and spirituality, and my mom's side, other things, the same probably. So they weren't taught about financial issues, and they suffered throughout their marriage when they were together. And there's 7 of us in all. I don't think any of us were taught. Our brothers were fortunate in that they married women or got with women that knew all about it. So they learned very early on about these things. But I don't know about Sadaka and Monica and the other girls, but I know I have attracted people that know less than I do. So, so that has meant it's been a lifelong pursuit of learning anything about this stuff, from making every mistake you can make. And it did not help in my relationships because the men I was with did not have a clue either. So, to me, the first thing people need to know is that it's something you got to talk about, just like, what's your kids, how do you want to raise your children? Is there a religion in our household? Where do you want to live? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This part of it needs to be a discussion that you have way ahead of marriage, because people are so different in the way they handle their money, what their beliefs are about money. Do they have a lack consciousness? Do they have a prosperous consciousness? What do they have? And so if you can understand each other and come to terms there, that would help in a relationship, instead of trying to learn on your feet and then finding out you're completely different people that way. What do you say to that, Dr. Alicia?
Yeah, I mean, everything you say makes sense. I mean, you're growing up, for you, there was no explicit conversations about money, but I'm certain money was pretty implied in a lot of decisions that you make. What type of food you buy, what type of car that you buy. Certain purchases were made in the house, maybe not explicit conversations, but things were implied about if you grew up with a lot of children in the house, you know, did you grow up where there was a lack thereof? Or did you grow up where there was an abundance? And how did you relate to that? What was your reaction to those implicit conversations? Maybe you wanted to have an explicit conversation about something that you noticed and there was no one there to help you process all of that. So it could have been you were left to yourself trying to tease some of this out. It's interesting because if you are in a relationship with someone who also didn't know much about money, I'm curious about how aware you are of that. Like, do both of you sit down and say, I don't know what to do and I don't know either? I mean, having that self-awareness, that's a good place to be, to recognize that you don't know. And then being in a relationship where you can have open communication, where you can say, let's go and let's the problem with money is not between you. The problem with money is where you join together and say, that's the problem. Let's try to work on this together. Like, I'm curious about how the two of you were able to have a conversation about money so that you can tackle it together. If you don't know something, maybe we should talk to a financial planner to answer some of our questions. Or maybe we should go to an expert to help guide us with what to do. It's almost like a beautiful opportunity for you and another person to join together and to say, you know what, now that a year ago, we knew nothing. And now today we know so much more and we're so much closer because of it. Because just being secure financially in knowing that you're with another person and both of you all are working toward the same goal financially, buying a house, that's a big deal. Buying a car, having children, all of that embedded. You have to have a conversation about money. And if those conversations go well and you're on the same page, it can make you stronger. The relationship, the family can be so much stronger because of it.
The problem is, I don't think you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
That's to me is the issue. I didn't know anything about money. I didn't know that. But what I do know, I know now, is that there was a lot of lack consciousness in my household. You know, my mom said, we don't have anything constantly. I don't have any money. But yet we're living in a 3-bedroom Chicago style house in a beautiful neighborhood, and both of my parents work a lot. My father works 3 jobs and my mother works 1, but all I ever heard is we don't have anything. We don't have anything. We don't have enough. We don't have enough. So that's the way I learned how to grow up thinking I never have enough, instead of we have exactly what we need right now. And I'm so thankful for that. You know what I mean? Something as small as that, not even in getting into the minutia of finance, but just the way you think about money is so, I was doing it to my own kid and I didn't even realize it because you don't know what you don't know. I was telling my daughter, oh, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. We can't afford that. No, we can't do that because that's how it was said in my house. And that's how I learned. But then I started learning about the power of words. And that lack consciousness was bred into me because it was bred into them and it was bred into them and it was bred into them all the way back. And so now as a almost 60-year-old woman, I'm learning how to untangle those knots of falsities and those false narratives and trying to help my 22-year-old daughter do the same, because in that time we were together in the first half of her life, that's how I was repeating old patterns with her. But then I started learning and I was like, I'm messing it up. And then I started testing that stuff. I was like, okay, if I start talking this way instead, if I start affirming this way instead, if I start saying, thank you, Jesus, with that mustard seed faith for all this stuff that I'm believing I have, if I can see it in the natural or not. And I saw all of a sudden stuff started coming to me. Stuff started flowing to me. I had help when I needed help. I had everything I needed when I needed it, just because of the way I was seeing it, And to me, it starts there with a couple. How do you see money? What does it mean to you? And before you even get to the, about the house and the credit cards and how we pay for stuff, we have to know to have a conversation about what our beliefs are. about
Yeah,
money.
I mean, there's a reason why it's the leading cause of stress in relationships. You know, how you manage money. And even having money or a belief that you have a lack of money, it doesn't even really matter. Like it's more than what you think. So having conflicts in your relationship about money, sometimes it has nothing to do with how much you have. You know, it's really about what's underlying. It's fears, it's your hopes and your dreams. That's the real conflict.
And it's also too, to me,
Mhm.
when it comes to relationships and our relationships with money. I
Mhm.
think that Cindy said was on point about like the lack mindset. But I also think that one of the challenges when you're in a relationship to someone is your trust with them.
Yes.
Because I have the same problems that Cindy has had because of our upbringing, you know, with the lack mentality. I'm just now getting to a point where my energy with money is becoming positive. And now instead of trying to spend, I get excited about investing it. Like, so that, you know, like my mindset has completely changed, but it's because I had to reprogram my mind and pretty much release all those toxic patterns from my childhood. Growing up, I, like you said, you don't know what you don't know, but I've had two completely, like in the last 6 years, two different relationships. And they both were saying the same thing, because I make a pretty good amount of money, but I have always not been able to manage it well or to save it and invest well. And with one of the individuals, you know, they always took from me. And they played on the amount of money I had. So rather than kind of like contributing to it or helping me manage it, they were always taking it. So that would be a very negative, you know, they just heightened my negative relationship with money, because that lack mindset, I never have enough. They perpetuated it. But, you know, and another relationship that I've had, where the person said, okay, we need to work on managing money and saving so that we can build together. That synced for me a completely different mindset. It's a relationship I'm in now, you know, where, you know, he's like, I'm very good at saving, yes, this is a problem that you're spending all your that you're spending all the money, but I make money too. And like, let's put our coins together to build. And so, you know, just even that change dynamic, I think, in a relationship, rather than like, you know, berating your partner when you're with them. And, you know, if there are things off about money, if they have a lot of debt, student loans, you know, being like, okay, this is what it is, but how can we fix it? Like you said, go to financial, how can we work through it together to make you feel, because like when you're not good with money, it's embarrassing, it's humiliating. Like, and when you're bringing that into a relationship, that can cause a lot of tension. And I see a lot of people who enter relationships, like there are a lot of people in relationship right now who are roommates. Like they just fit off of like just the money exchange and like paying rent. They call themselves couple, but they've like relegated their relationship to really just like taking care of the kids and paying the bills. But there's no balance when it comes to actually building their relationship together. So I see people doing this unhealthy thing where they center it all around the money and the kids, but nothing else in terms of building up the dynamic. And then a lot of couples too, like she was talking, our brothers have very positive relationships with their partners, but they, in that dynamic, they're able, because it's a man and a woman, and they were the man, they were able to learn from each other, and now both the parties are benefiting from that. But a lot of times women will lean in on men and then just let the man take care of everything. And so that woman will stay in that mentality of not knowing how to manage the money or control to the household in whatever way she can, which can be a major disadvantage, right? If no one is teaching the kids, because if mama doesn't know, then how the kids gonna know unless dad is taking the time to teach them? And if he's working all day, then how's he gonna do that? So I'm making a point that it really should be both parties understand the money. It shouldn't just be that the man controls the money or that the woman controls the money. Both, it has to be a partnership about how they're managing the money. So I'm just saying, because I see people do that a lot, like where they're like, oh, well, I don't need to have anything to do with money. You handle the money. I'm gonna do this over here. And I think that could also have negative consequences as well.
I have a question and a quick comment, and then I'm going to go on mute. I have yet to hear one person, and this is no slight to anyone, so don't think that, mention the word love. I was in love and purchased a house with someone, and everything was fine. It was beautiful. We both had our responsibilities as far as finances. We both worked 2 jobs. Unfortunately, I got sick, and most people know what my illness is, but that love, it turned to hate. It literally turned to hate. Needless to say, I'm no longer in that house. My name is still on the deed, but how does that even happen? And I'll go on mute.
You know, love is not enough to get married to somebody and it is essential. It's essential. It has to be there, but it's just not enough. You would think that it's enough, but it really isn't. And there was so much, thank you. You just talked about so many topics there. I really think that you really do, before you settle down, I think early on, even in the dating process, you really need to have a conversation about money. And a lot of times those conversations, a person's relationship with money just on basic get to know you. So you pay attention. If you're dating someone, you pay attention. How do they spend their free time? What do they do? Do they go on vacations? Pay attention to like where they're going on vacations and how much money they spend on it. If they go and eat out, where they live, if they've graduated from college or not, their career. There's certain indicators where you can tell how responsible they are with money. Are they somebody that's a spendthrift and like to spend all the time? There's different things that you need to pay attention to, in addition to actually loving that person, but being able to look at those things really closely. And I think before you get married, having explicit conversations about what type of lifestyle you want to live. And you can talk about your background and where you come from. A lot of that is it's related to money, like how you spend money on things, what you do with your life has a lot to do with money. I do want to talk about money can also reflect a power imbalance in relationships. And I think that should be handled. Definitely, no matter how much money you make, you need to know what's going on with money in your household. Why? There's some women in particular who get so anxious about it. They don't even want to deal with it. They're so nervous when it comes to money. They're just like, they just turn a blind eye and put blinders up and say, I don't know, let my husband take care of that. I don't do anything. That's a mistake. As an adult, a mature adult, you're not a child. You should know what's happening. And I think for many people, they do have to come to terms with some deep-rooted issues, particularly with money arguments that you have in your relationships. I don't know. I think people worry about not having enough money in the future, even if they don't need to worry. And a lot of it is related to what happened in the childhood, what happened, when you were a child. So if you learn growing up that a lack of money equals pain, and that must be avoided at all costs, sometimes that can cause some people to overwork themselves, because that's their association. If you grew up struggling with money, there were periods where the adults in your household were unemployed in your childhood, a lack of money can freak some people out, or a perception of a lack of money can freak you out, and it can impact you in a bunch of different areas in your life. Some people can't sleep. Some people can't eat just because they are thinking. Some people can't even function unless their finances look a certain way. It's like they can't relax. Some people are easily irritable, and that causes a great deal of tension in a lot of the couples that I see in family life. A difficult childhood related to money can cause a lot of people to be spendthrifts. And the opposite end of that, they spend way too much money on other people, and it can rack up all these credit card debts. And some people can go into bankruptcy, and then you have the shame attached to that. So it's telling your story, and people looking at you like you went into bankrupt. I mean, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs in my practice. a lot of entrepreneurs do go bankrupt, because it's very risky business. I cannot be a full-time entrepreneur. I would never be able to sleep at night. I have a full-time job at a university. So it's just, well, I know that's what I need. I have good health care. My kids go to college for free because of it. Like, that is just something where I just know I'm going to always maintain, as well as my side gig, I guess, doing what I'm doing today, but that's just, I know myself. I know I need to have safety and security is so important to me. So I just know myself, and I'm able to articulate that. And I'm not trying to change that about myself. I just understand where that comes from. In my current situation, I don't have a budget, but we live so far beneath our means that we don't need to budget our money. It's just like, we want to do something, we'll just do it. We'll just do it because we know that we save a lot more than we spend. And I don't need to have a brand new car. I don't need to live in the best neighborhood, although our neighborhood is pretty good. I just don't need that to be happy. I do need to have security though, to be happy. So,
Agreed.
So
yeah.
James, what is your thoughts about this?
From a cultural perspective, as a Black American, and as a person who come up in an environment relative to religiosity, because my dad was a United Methodist pastor, that set things a little bit different. And the reason why it's so different is because the expectations of who I am culturally lends itself to what I expect in another person. And that connects to, I love this person, as an example, my second wife. Okay. My second wife was well endowed relative to money. And so I knew that coming into the situation, but I cared for her a lot. But she really was good at money because she come from an environment in Chicago she lacked a lot of money. And so when she reached the pinnacle of success relative to her job, then that's when we met. And that's when I thought that and believed that she could handle the money better than I could. So I gave in to that in a lot of ways. And in doing so, I relinquished my perspective as it relates to our money issues, and I allowed her to do it. Well, and she did that. And I'm just making the point that in my situation, and I'm trying not to be personal, I'm trying to be as easy as I can in that without putting down anybody. I don't want to put her down. But she really controlled the money, and in doing so, she controlled me. And she can control what I am able to do relative to my thoughts on creativity, what I wanted to do in life, where I wanted to go, who I adhered to relative to what I wanted to do. And in doing so, she and I split for a lot of reasons relative to money. And then I adhered to her. And at the time of us really splitting, and I'm only using this as an example, she took me to she really did me kind of rough. And she took all the money, and she provided a way for me to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, because she made much more than I did, because she worked for the federal government, which was good. But when we split, and me with trusting her, she manipulated to the extent that I had nothing and she had everything. And that was because I trusted her and believed in her as a personality. And I care for her very much. We just had different opinions about life. But she didn't hold back on what she wanted to do in regard to her ability to make money and ability to move up the scale relative to her job, which was good. But I fell in the basket. I was left out to the extent that when we split, I had to almost just start all over again as it relates to what I had, what we had together. I lost the house. I lost the cars. I lost everything. And then she put a lot of the bills on me, even though I made much less than she did because I was searching for things creative. I was doing things from a different perspective. Now I look back and I see that the idea of trust is really vital and important. Love is okay, yeah, and we love each other, but trust is really relative to what we do and how we spend our life, and as it relates to our children as well. Did I say too much? I'm sorry.
No, that's
that's
confirming what Dr. Alicia has been talking about. That I think that confirms what Sadek has been talking about, and it's just your own personal story that illustrates
yes.
that. It illustrates what can happen if it's imbalance in a relationship when it comes to, because the same thing happened to me. You know, I ain't giving in my story. Same thing happened to me, kind of, except for I was the one that paid for everything, and so all the debt came to me.
To me, what it demonstrates is that sometimes our fear that we carry from previous relationships influences how we project it moving forward into other relationships. Because I think story, Uncle King, I never had known what happened, but I don't know that person's previous history, but I know what I struggled with. That I've been reprogramming myself as a woman who makes a good amount of money, in relationships. Most of my partners up in my life, I've always made more than them, and I realized I got so damaged from my last relationship where I was getting stolen from, and where he was a gambler, which took every fear I had ever had about money and just made it 100 times worse. And so I think we talk about a gender balance or just a balance of feminine and masculine within myself. He brought out the super distorted masculine in me. Like in terms of like hyper independent, very kind of aggressive. It's my way. I want to do it. I don't care what you're talking about doing. Like what Uncle King is talking about, like where I hold the money, so we're going to do things my way. And I had developed that because of what he was doing, where he was taking money from me and doing all this other stuff. So when I entered my new relationship, one of the first things, like to me, love includes all of this stuff, like real love.
Yeah.
Is my partner and I, it's been rocky, but it's been rocky because we've been healing each other. We're like mirrors to each other in a lot of ways. And one of the first things that we confronted was how aggressive I was when it came, not necessarily to money, but just everything, because I'm so used to being a single mom, hyper independent, wanting to just do things my way, that I was subconsciously like just doing those things and not even recognizing it. And it took for me to be in with a person who I knew didn't have it out for me and who I could trust to help me see myself. And because that happened, everything else has been impacted, including money, and like in terms of how we have conversations about it. Because to me, it's not just about trust; it's about respect.
Right.
Like in your case, respecting you as a man and her partner, and as you being a human being. Like that was what was lacking, in addition to trust, was the respect too of you as a man. And I've seen it happen so much also in other relationships where the woman makes more money. But I do think that it goes the other way with
It
men
does. It
that
does.
make money.
It does.
And I think that's the way we used to be, but now it's shifted so that it's the other way. I don't want to not include Dr. Newsom's thoughts about any of this because I haven't heard from him. We've been going about. Please tell us your thoughts.
Well, I'm just gonna talk real brief. I'm not really gonna talk that much, but what I advise people constantly and continually about finances. And two things I would say when I advise people, if they're in a relationship, I would never tell them to combine their money. I would not never do that. If they get married, combine your money. But if you're in a relationship, I would never give that type of advice, telling people who's not married to combine your money. If you're living together, that's one thing. But at the same time, I do teach people how to buy a car, how to buy a house, how to handle their finances, because I know finances is one of the biggest things that bring families down. It breaks up relationships. That's one of the major things that break up relationships is the finances. So I teach them about the finances first. I don't control if they're in love or not. I ain't got nothing to do with that. If they tell me they're in love, I believe them. I mean, I ain't got no reason not to believe them. But I definitely would not teach them to combine money if they're in a relationship. If you know this is the one you're going to marry, find out about all the finances he has, find out about all the finances she has, and then find out what direction you both want to go in life. And when you agree on that same page, because some people actually that get married should never get married. I've advised couples who wanted to get married, and both of them were broke. I told them you weren't ready to get married because you don't got any money. You don't get married and do what? Go into debt, struggle. And those two people took my advice, and they end up finding somebody that they were compatible to, and both of them have nice marriage relationships to this day. Everybody not gonna say that. Everybody, oh, you in love? No, you're not in love. You're broke. You're not gonna do anything but have babies and get in more debt. Yes, it was hard. Yes, they were mad at me. But when they heard what I said, they said, you know what, Dr. Newsom, you're right. We glad we didn't get married. I said, I know. I said, I understand y'all was mad at me. I get that, but I don't care. The point is I'm trying to help save your life. And now both of them have amazing marriages to this day. I do not advise nobody to get married, especially if you don't got any money. What you marrying? That didn't even make any sense. You're going to be in debt. You can't pay your bills. You can't pay for the house, the rent. You can't pay for nothing. So no, I'm one that I will not, I advise people totally different. And then I help them with their finances. If you want to buy a car with no money down. I teach this very day. I teach my sons. I teach everybody, go buy a car with no money down. One of my sons wanted to spend $5,000. His daddy got $5,000 put down on this car. I said, son, actually, we're not going to put nothing down on this car. He said, no, Dad, I got $5,000. I said, son, we're not putting nothing down. He said, well, Dad, how am I going to get the car? I said, come on, let me show you. Went to a car dealership, brand new car. They wanted $14,000 for it. Guy asked, well, you know, what you want to pay for it? I said, we'll pay 11. They said, no, it's for 14. I said, I get that, but we're going to pay 11,000. I said, you going to sell it to us for 11,000? He said, well, I don't know. I said, well, if you're not going to sell it to 11,000, there's other car dealerships up the street. We just go up the street. Okay, we give it to you for 11,000. Well, they actually gave it to us for 12,500, and he put zero money down. See, when I'm advising people, I'm showing them how to save money because I know this is what's going to be the major part of your relationship is finances. I would never tell no woman to give any man their money. I would never tell no man to give any woman his money because what men do, us, we have so many dreams and goals and visions, and we'll break you. We'll take all your money because we believe in our dreams and goals and visions. A lot of women like to shop, not all. A lot of women like to shop. So a man definitely has to keep an eye on that. But both of you have to consistently watch each other, not criticize each other. Just watch each other. In the dating portion, find out how he spends. In the dating portion, find out how she spends. Just watch them. If he can never pay for anything, like, okay, I thought you said you were working. I thought you was making X amount of dollars. Well, you know, baby, I am. But you know what? I got these inventions, these ideas. Hold on. We got to do this together. If you're talking about a secure relationship. Now, if some people just getting together, just have sex and do all that stuff, well, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I can't advise that. That's not something I advise. I wouldn't even waste my time advising something like that. If they're just doing it to have sex and they want to have babies, I ain't got nothing to do with that. And I try to advise people where I know help them save their finances, secure their relationship, and then when they get married, they can buy a house together. They can buy a car. You don't have to buy a car together, buy a car separately. But definitely, if you're going into a house, make sure you buy the house together and you're on the same page, because if something happened in the future and you have to separate, well, at least you can walk away with some type of assets or some type of money from the sale of the house. So you got to plan for the future. Not that you plan for a divorce. You don't do that. I was married 30 years and ended up getting a divorce after 30 doggone years. I said, what the heck? That was pretty much my good life right there. But things happen where we got a divorce. It happens. That's not something I planned, like, oh, I'm a plan. No, I didn't plan that. But it happened. But at the same time, me and my wife, when we separated, to this day, me and her best of friends, we're amazing friends. We talk all the time, but we got a divorce. So you got to put these things in place before you even contemplate getting married. And I'm that's how I advise people. So I ain't gonna talk too much.
Again, right in sync with all of us. I think everybody here has their own experiences to draw from, and my theme from this conversation thus far is you got to talk about it before you make a commitment to each other. That's what it comes down to. You got to get to know each other that way. When I had another show at one point, and what I thought was true was, in order to have be wholly healthy, you have to have a holistic relationship, meaning you have to check your body, you have to check your mind, you have to check your heart, you have to check your spirit, you have to check your money. And so I will have different therapists on. I call my financial guy my financial therapist, because to me, that is a part of a holistic, we on this earth, we're spirit beings. The biggest part of us is a part of God. We're spirit beings, but we're living right here in this 3D world. And so we have to live in this 3D world. And so that has to be included in the holistic health of a single person, an individual, a family, and beyond. All the elements have to be connected and in balance with each other. And so I think it's so beautiful that you guys are so forthcoming in your thoughts about this. It's very crucial. And I only know that from my own experience.
I really appreciate we got two men on here, because normally in my practice, sometimes men in particular always fear that they don't have enough money. And if they don't have enough money, they're like, if I don't have enough money, I'm not going to make my partner happy. So a lot of men won't even pursue a relationship until they feel financially secure. And I don't know, I just, so hats off to you gentlemen for disclosing very painful experiences related to money and control. And I'm glad that we have another illustration here about how you have been able to overcome some of these money issues with your partner. And the gentleman on here talking not so much, but that control of money is connected to some sort of fear. In a sense, it does make sense that people would be squabbling over money, because the rent is due every month. Those monthly bills need to get paid. And just to face it, I mean, a lot of us, we're talking political, we have these unexpected crises that can come up that can cause a lot of stress. Your car break down, you lose your job. What happened during COVID? People were cutting back on hours. We have this financial crisis. Sometimes some companies were giving their employees furloughs, and this can set a couple back tremendously. So, these are some really real things that can cause a lot of fear. And that control has to do with money. Like I wonder what they were afraid of, the wives that you were talking about. What were they afraid that would happen? Like, why is it that you feel like you need to control? Another thing, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but another thing that when you were talking, Dr. Newsom, I don't tell couples what to do. I just tell them the consequences of their behavior. I let them make the decision, but that's good. You're in a position to be bold enough. But you hit upon something really interesting about financial infidelity. And I will say financial infidelity cuts deeper than even sexual infidelity, because I think the most tragic situations I've seen in relationships is just fighting over money, and you spent the money and didn't tell me you did this. Like, I've even talked to even some wives in particular to be like, okay, he cheated on me and we were able to get over that, but he was deceitful when it comes to money and our children suffered because of that. I can't get over that. Like, it cuts deeper. Like, I don't know, being financially dishonest when it adversely affects the family, especially around Christmas time. You know, Johnny can't get gifts because you didn't spend the money gambling somewhere. You know, it affects your lifestyle, the whole household, everything. I've seen it really ruin relationships because there's so much resentment and anger around, I trusted you with the money and you effed it up. Like, I can't get over it. You know, it's too much. They feel hurt, the hurt and betrayal, anger, sadness, disappointment about their partner's financial choices without letting them know what was happening. I've seen couples that just can't get over that. And unfortunately, it does lead to just, I'm too afraid. I cannot trust him anymore. I can't trust her anymore. This is over. So it is a very tragic situation, above and beyond even sexual infidelity.
Right. Yeah, I think because it has to do with a perceived life and death situation. Yeah. I mean, you know, cheating on me with her or him is emotionally damaging. It's hard. It messes with trust. But you messing with my kids' food and the ability to go to the doctor and get where they need to go because you have a habit that's harder to forget, because you can forgive it all, but it's harder to forget when you take away the stability of the family. And
it's comfort and security and peace has all been disrupted.
Yeah. It's deep and it's true, and I just don't think that. I know I didn't think about that. You know what I mean? Because honestly, if I told my stories, that's a few movies in the making. Okay, I literally the stuff that happened, and it got, the money was a part of it. I think my life illustrates everybody's in a way, because I've had it all. I think God gave me the gift of being able to experience the worst of life, so I could talk to people about making better decisions than I have. Write
a song about it. Put it into some music.
Exactly.
Make some money off of it.
Exactly. That's the plan. Monetize it, that energy. And I believe that money is energy, and I believe that financial energy will come back, because I just believe God deals with us that way. But we are running down to the last of it. I think everybody, I would love to hear one final thought, no more than about 30-40 seconds about this subject matter, so we can start to wrap this up. But I want to hear everybody's final thought. We'll start with you, Dr. Newsom, if you don't mind.
Well, I gotta tell you, my final outline is, I would tell everybody to stay focused, keep moving forward. What happened in the past is in the past. You can't change it. I can't change it. Nobody can change it. But we can change the present and the future. That's what I would encourage everybody to do. Use your past experience as examples. Use them as, talking points. But don't use them as something you dwell on. If you made a mistake in the past, so what? Who on this line have not made a mistake? Who in the world have not made a mistake? We all have. The Bible says we all have sinned to come short of the glory of God. I've sinned, you've sinned, we all sinned. But I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, look what I've done 10 years ago. I'm not doing that. I made mistakes. Yes. I'm focusing on the present and the future. And that's what I would encourage everybody else to do. Focus on the present and the future. We cannot change the past.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Sadi, Rose, what's your final thought?
I guess one thing, yeah, I saw in the chat, James had said, whenever I'm fortunate enough to be in a relationship, we're going to prioritize together our career and financial goals. And I think, we didn't really go into that in this conversation, but I think that could help address a lot of these issues that we're talking about, is actually communicating and talking about what are the short-term priorities in a relationship in terms of finances, and then kind of like what is the vision for where we want to go as a unit, as a partner, as a couple. So I just want to make that point. I thought that it was a good comment in the chat, and I just want to leave with that note that I think that's also important to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you, James, and thank you, Sadaka, for bringing it up. James, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, not really. I learned a lot in just this little small segment of time, just understanding life and understanding creativity and what we do when we're faced with difficult circumstances relative to our significant other. It's not easy. I will say that there's another source that I depend upon, regardless of the fact that I made monstrous mistakes in the past, is I depend upon something bigger than myself, my thoughts, my mind, my emotions. I depend upon God Almighty. And that is nothing. I don't play with that. And in listening to you all speak, younger people, I would suggest that too. And it doesn't have to be real religious-y. It just have to be something that you are doing for yourself, your children, and for your significant other. It doesn't have to be your husband. It could be your significant other. And it will work out. When I got into my worst condition, I discovered that the people that I counted upon subtly were able to help me through a very difficult time in life relative to suicidal ideations, relative to giving up and everything like that. In that there is something else, and we cannot be afraid of it or ashamed of it. There is something else. And I still believe in trusting another human being in my life, even though I am a little bit over the lake.
Stop. Thank you, James. That's so true. If you put that love, that God in it, I think that it helps with every aspect, that holistic vision. And
Yeah.
Dr. Alicia, what would you like to say to give us some final words on this?
Yeah, quickly, parting thoughts. Let's see. I would say being in a relationship means that you don't have to suffer alone financially. And that should bring you some comfort to know that, the fundamental nature of being in a committed, healthy relationship is that you don't have to do it alone. You can have somebody that got your back, that can bail you out. Like I tell my husband all the time, I got your back. If you need anything, if you out somewhere, you don't have your wallet, I got you. If I'm out, I know he's got me. So it's just knowing that that's what the unconditional love is about. It's just knowing that, it's you're not basing your relationship on finances. You're using finances to help and enhance everybody's individual goals.
Right.
That's absolutely. I mean, having been in relationships and having not been in relationships, it's much more fun with someone else if it's healthy. That's for dang on sure. And it makes it easier. Doe Eyes, would you, I'm going to just give my final thoughts and let you take it out, Doe Eyes. I want to say thank you to everyone that has participated in this conversation today. All we need is a big old dining room table and some food, and this be Sunday dinner. So thank you so much for joining us today. Just for your information, those of us that are listening in, thank you for your comments. We're going to be doing this once a month on weekend, usually Saturday, because it's just easier for everybody timing wise. So we'll be more consistent in the new season when it comes to when we do the show. As for relationships and money and stuff, just be open and full of love about it all. And I think you'll be on the right track. All right, Doai, you want to take it out?
Sure. I also wanted to add that learn that, excuse me, that don't allow the past or people to devalue you. Understand that you do have value as far as relationships. And thank you to this first season of Adult Conversations with Cynda, Family and Friends. And we look forward to seeing you 2020, God willing.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you so much. God bless you and happy 2025.
Happy 2025 to each and every one of you. God bless you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
I love
everyone.
you.
Love you all.